beginning of the school year marks a time of introductions. What is your name? How was your summer? What is one word you would use to describe yourself? Once my friend put down Asian American, and to me, this adjective comes with a couple of implications. The stereotypical good Asian child is a wondrous human, an academic savant, and the type of person that stands up with rigid, straight posture. They are raised to speak perfect English, converse with family in their mother tongue, and hold their grandparents' hands as they wobble along sidewalks at a pace that only the elderly do. I am not that. I'm an Asian American, but I'm barely Asian. I only speak English, I take Spanish for language credit, and I'm rarely ever not slouching. I lack the patience to slow down for my elders with bad knees and merely stop completely, tapping my foot away as I wait for them to catch up. Somewhat related, I put down impatient as my adjective. Well, with a couple of exceptions, this perception of Asian American children representing almost complete perfection seems to be true in many cases. The big-name colleges, outstanding extracurriculars, and high grades make us all, or at least me, feel like there really are a lot of good Asian children. And this perception of Asian American children is often explained away by immigrant parenting, with most people agreeing, well, it's the parents. They force their kids to do all these activities. They have extremist expectations. But why? Why would they do that? Why would you force any loved one to meet such high standards and put so much pressure on them? This never made much sense to me, the coexistence between harsh expectations and loving intent. This seemingly complex relationship between such differing emotions was something that I could never quite figure out. But love itself always seemed pretty simple to me. I felt love when I played with Legos with my older brother, when my cousin gifted me a handmade Pokemon-themed birthday card. I saw love when my grandparents gave me the Snoopy blanket that I still use to this day. I knew love when my parents heated up milk for me at the crack of dawn, when we went shoe shopping the day before school, and when I would sit in the car on the way to random places just to be the lucky charm that allowed them to drive in the carpool lane. But love isn't simple. For every instance that I felt appreciated, I've been reprimanded and scolded for big and small mistakes, spilling my milk, accidentally offending great aunts, and hitting my brother, not by accident. I've been crying, screaming, sobbing. I've spent countless nights just holding my breath until the crying stopped. I've been hurt. Until I reflected, I never truly understood the nuance of my childhood love for my family. The same 5-year-old deeply hurt by a parental scolding for spilling milk is the same 5-year-old who loved her parents dearly and knew that they loved her as well. Like seemingly everything in life, there's a scientific term for this: filial piety. These two words describe the familial relations that characterize many Asian American families, those with pain as a part of love and hurt as a consequence of caring. While this concept may not resonate with those that haven't grown up in similar households, I believe that the complexities of filial piety can teach us how to foster empathy for all parents in all families. The textbook definition of filial piety describes this reciprocal relationship between parents and children. For immigrant families and Asian American families, parents often sacrifice everything to raise their children, and in return, children are expected to respect and honor their parents. Filial piety is deeply rooted in East Asian culture and contrasts Western culture in two key aspects of family life. The first is the culture of caregiving for elders. In many Asian American families, the way that adult children care for elders is fundamentally different than in Western culture, where a common practice is to relocate the elderly to assisted living facilities or nursing homes. In these living facilities, many elderly are isolated from their family and friends and lose much of what commonly constitutes daily life for most of us. This leads to a fear of being isolated. In a comparative study of Denmark and China conducted by the University of Southern Denmark, the researchers found that weakening filial piety structures, a weakening emphasis on this family and reciprocal relationship, leaves elderly grandparents feeling distressed. They feel more distant from their family. They feel more distant from their family, from their children. Nursing homes lack this emotional connection between a child caring for their loved one, that emotional connection that comes from this familial bond. This varying emphasis between Western and Asian culture comes from structural differences in society. In a study examining Australia and China conducted by James Cook University, they found that in Western societies, parents have a legal and moral obligation to care for children, while the reverse, children caring for elderly parents, is an unenforced, voluntary choice. This is completely different than some Chinese districts that are like Qingdu, where there is a filial obligation. Parents have to sign contracts that say that they will support their parents after the age of 60. When we shift our lens away from Asia back to the US, when Asian immigrants come to the US with no obligations of elderly care, the shift is jarring. Caregiving is a sign of love, a fight against isolation, and an art that many parents feel that they risk losing if they do not teach this relationship of filial piety. And this caregiving burden to bear manifests in filial structures that span several generations. In a Pew Research study, they found that Asian Americans are twice as likely to live in multi-generational family households, caring for elders even while raising children. Elder care entails much more than just having a room in a house, often including cooking for and cleaning up for aging parents that have lessened control over their body, shopping for groceries, and translating legal documents. Elder care represents a larger cycle of filial piety. While parents expect reciprocity from their children, they demonstrate that very reciprocity in the very same household while caring for grandparents. Ingrained deeply into these societies, we can see filial piety affect another key area, education. And this is the most externally apparent, given we can see the national merit scholars, the university acceptances, and the dreaded LinkedIn profiles. But what makes good Asian children so smart? Well, outside of immigration trends, the Encyclopedia for Applied Ethics explains that the primary reason for Asian American students' superior academic achievement is filial piety, and it is Asian parenting styles that focus students on self-improvement, learning, and growth. In fact, a researcher from the University of Oxford studied 8 academically accomplished seniors in a South Korean international high school, and the seniors explained that their devotion to academics was for their parents. Not out of expectation or obligation, but an internal desire to show how they value their parents. Instead of viewing education as a means for oneself to say, get a nice job or buy a nice car, educating oneself and devoting time to self-improvement becomes a means to show value for parents, to show value for the parental sacrifices of time, income, and love. It pushes us as students to prestigious colleges and jobs, anything that might prove that we valued our parents. That is why so many prioritize profitable careers above all else, avoiding artistic and creative pursuits, and actually shying away from risky wants. Ultimately, filial piety narrows down to those 2 critical applications: caring for our elders and education for ourselves. We as a society may have differing ways of approaching parenting, but achieving these goals is universal. I personally grew up shows like the Berenstain Bears and Arthur, with families holding the same roles as mine: mother, father, daughter, brother. And these families taught me ideals of kindness and open communication, teaching me that the best way to care for children was to treat them akin to an equal and allow them to make mistakes without consequences. But at the same time, I was growing up in a household where I didn't have the ability to express my feelings in the same way. I didn't talk about my dreams for the future, knowing what was already expected of me. I felt this contrast between good parenting and what I was experiencing, something different, but something rooted in love nevertheless. Parenting isn't easy. Our parents make mistakes, but for the most part, these faults are inevitable. Like a young child learning how to walk, stumbling, tripping, and falling, parents are simultaneously learning how to care for children, which doesn't come with an instruction manual and is much more complex than any of us would wish it was. Ultimately, learning from our diverse community of different parenting styles and different cultural ideals can teach us about how we ought to live our own lives and how we ought to view other parents. While we may frown upon things commonly associated with Asian parenting, a lack of independence and strict expectations, upon closer examination, this isn't what Asian American parenting is about. It's about this equal and opposite relationship between parents and children. Love and devotion manifesting in a way that's different than constant hugs, never-ending affection, and many I love yous, but it's rooted in love nevertheless. In the end of the day, I hope that this brief introduction to filial piety serves as a gentle reminder to view your parents with a little bit more kindness, and understand that when your friends complain about their parents, often it's coming from a place of love. Thank you.